It's Wednesday, April 10th, 2024. Days just go by. I have to really think about that sometimes. Look at this big stack of covers here. So what does that mean? That means that I'm getting through my covers. I think I have about 15 to build. Now this is assembly. This is trimming and doing the roundovers, but that doesn't take that long. Once I get this done, I'll be uh, I'll be able to finish all that work in a day. You can see there's a beautiful day outside. I think it's 14 or 15 C and sunny. There is some cloud, but it's high broken cloud, so it's very sunny. Let me take you outside and I'll show you some of the things I've been doing. Very sunny. I can hardly see the screen, but you can see the syrup tank here. I brought the pump out. This Honda pump, I always brag about it. That pump sat in my uh, wintering building, my bee barn, all winter. I had put some fuel stabilizer in the tank last fall, and the tank is right full of gas. So that's the gas I put in that last fall. I think it took 3, maybe 4 pulls on that pump, and away it went. Just love that engine. So I put the pump on there, and I put the big serving hose on there. And then I brought a little pallet of jars up here. I just set it up on this pallet, and I filled 24 jars out of that. So then I took that out the apiary, tipped those up over those 10 colonies that are surviving still. I think there's actually 11, but there was a couple that weren't going to make it. So I'm kind of counting that as 10, and it is what it is, right? I apologize if there's a little wind noise. I don't have my windshield on my mic. So there's 3 nukes here. These 2 are dead, but there's a poly here that's alive. There's a little 4-framer that's alive, and there's a 6-framer that's alive. So if you remember last year, there was 40 colonies of bees brought in from Alberta, and the extent of my apiary today is made up of those bees. There are no other bees from my apiary that survived, save for these 3. So these 3 are from, my line of bees that I had last year. And so this one is actually a new one, queen that I grafted. So I'm glad she survived. I think this one probably is 2. This one, a little 4-framer, I think was a colony that was a full colony, but it had collapsed because of the mites last summer. And so last fall, I put a bunch of them in here in these 4-framers just because they were still alive. That's all I could do. And lo and behold, this little guy is actually looking pretty darn good. I mean, it's not a box of bees, but they look okay. I want to show you something else here. You can see a yellow thing here, and there's another one that's red behind this brick. So I want to show you what's going on there. Recently, I had a guy contact me online, and he said, "Hey, I've come up with a new little feeder design that I'd like to share with you and get your impressions of." And I said, "Yeah, okay, just drop a couple off, and I'll have a look." And so he did yesterday, and that's what this is. There's one behind this brick here. So I don't know. I'm nowhere in a veil, so I don't know if I can. I just put these on this morning. These happen to fit my 1 kg or 750 milliliter honey jars. He says he has different thread configurations, and he does have one for my wide mouth mason jar, which is here. And that's good because that's the jar of choice for me. I just use these honey jars because that's the one he dropped off. So let me pull this up, see what's going on. There's some bees on that. Okay, so I'll flick them off for now. I want to show you. It's basically a lid for the jar. It's 3D printed, obviously, and he's got a nice perforated matrix here. He's got a keyhole, a curved slotted keyhole here, which I imagine you can put a screw in here to hold this down so maybe it doesn't get knocked off by, I don't know, wildlife, or some people have cattle near their bees, or the wind. Sometimes my big mason jars get blown over if there's a high wind, but those have a very small footprint on the lid. Even this large footprint, I think, would go a long way to keeping it from falling over. And one thing I really like is it's easy on, easy off. You've seen me struggle. See there, you put his name on that one. You've seen me struggle with the mason jar lids, and this is easy, very easy to put on here. Oh, I spilled the syrup. So that just locks right on there, and the bees access the syrup. Oh, okay, ladies, I gotta put this back. It looks like he's using about 1.5-inch size matrix on there, which is good. My feed holes are 2-inch, so I could certainly stand a 2-inch screen matrix on that. So it seems like a good little product, honestly, as commercial, 100 to 200 of those might be just cost prohibitive for me. But if you had a couple of hives, if I had 2 or 5 or 10 colonies, I could probably go ahead and use those. He says that he's using a UV resistant plastic on it, so that's important. However, these don't sit out in the sun really all that much because you're only feeding for a few weeks or so in the spring. They're not out in the sun all the time, but it's good that he uses a UV stable product for that. Yeah, so I just thought I'd point that out. And I told him if I like them, I do like the idea, because those mason jars that I use, I really like them, but just getting those lids off is just the worst thing. So I can see these bees have taken some of this syrup already today, which is very nice. So I like that big footprint. That makes it perfectly stable. So I'd love to put some of these on my big half-gallon mason jars. So that's about the extent of today's update. I spent some time unloading the truck. Went to the packer again yesterday, did some deliveries, got some nice deliveries yesterday, and another order again today. So it's really nice that the customers are demanding the product and using it up fast. Sometimes it seems that I don't catch up with the packing very well, but I do. And then there's, it almost seems like I get 600 pounds packed every week, but I will for stretches of time, and then I'll catch up and I'll not do it for a little while. So I like to do it in batches because, every time I go to take honey to packing, if I can pick up honey packing, that saves half a trip, right? So if I were just to take honey to pack and not pick anything up, and then come the next week and pick it up and not take anything in, then every 600 pounds is a round trip. Whereas if I'm dropping honey and picking up honey, then every 600 pounds is one-way trip, save for the first and last in that, that window of doing my packing. So it's just, cost savings. But, I go a lot for delivering orders and stuff too. I have stores to have to go to and whatnot. So it's usually not even just a wasted trip, even if I don't pick up or don't deliver packing. So anyway, I got that all unloaded today. I'm looking at it in the corner here. All these boxes of honey that, now hopefully somebody shows up and buys them. They will. I'm confident. So that's about all I have to share for today. I'm just building covers, and I won't finish today, but I'm pretty sure I'll finish tomorrow. So that'll be a nice Thursday, finish Thursday. Friday, I'll probably get the trimming and everything done. And then by the weekend, my covers will be done, and I can start on pallets. I have 118 pallets to make, and that's going to take me a while. I don't remember how many pallets I can do in a day, but it's not that many. It's maybe 10, I think. So if I have 118, that's 10. That's 12 days worth of pallets. And then there's interruptions. When I go to the city, I can't do pallets, so you have to add a few days there. So that's 2 to 3 weeks of work yet. So that's I gotta keep at it. I can't let my guard down. But there's other stuff where I gotta take care of the bees now too. So everything piles up. Oh, exciting thing, because I got the honey house, back and that I can use it. I've pulled my cappings. My cappings have been in 5 gallon pails in the shed all winter, so I pulled those out, put them in there. I put there's 12 there's 12 pails in the cabinet, and I think there's 13 pails left. So there's that many 5 gallon pails. And so what I'm doing is they're in my warming cabinet, and I'll leave them in there a few days, warm that stuff up really nice, and then I'll be able to easily dump that into my big melter tank. And then I can melt that wax, render it, and pour it off for sale to customers, sale to whoever. So it'll just be a rough render and strain the first time, and then we'll take it from there. After that, if customer wants highly filtered, then that's what we'll do. So I should, with 20, 25 pails, I think there is. There should be a bit of wax there, so it'd be interesting to see what comes out of the melter. So that's exciting. Got to fill the jacket in the melter and get it hot too, and that'll come up here probably in the next few days. It might be on the weekend. If I get the covers done, I might take a day and then do something like that before I get fully into the pallets. So just watch for that. Going to render the cappings in April. Such as it is, right? That's what happens. Oh well. Thanks for watching, and I'll update you tomorrow, hopefully. And hopefully there's something interesting to see. Otherwise, it's just going to be building covers, so not very interesting. But I really appreciate you watching. Take care and have fun. It's Friday, April 12th, 2024. And guess what? I am done my covers. Well, almost. There was one here that was a bit stubborn. You can't hardly see it, but you can see all these clamps. So I had to clamp it like crazy to make sure it all was nice and tight together while the glue set. So that's set now overnight. I'm going to trim this cover up and do the roundovers on it, and then I will be 100% complete. You can see the stack is a little bit uneven here. There's 25 on that side, 24 on that side. So once I get this one on there, we will have 50. I've got 4 of those. That makes 200. So I'm very, very happy about that. This is also what I'm happy about is I got my saw blades back from the sharpener the other day when I was in town. So they even sharpened this cheap DeWalt blade, which is fine. It's like, I think I paid $15 for the blade. Yeah, I don't know what I paid, because actually it came in a set of 2. Yeah, I think it was about $15 for each, about $30 for the set. And I just paid $19 to sharpen it. But, I don't like to throw things in the garbage if I don't need to. These 2 are stuck together because they put this waxy stuff on there to protect the teeth and protect me from the teeth. And it must have been warm or wet or whatever it is when they put it on there, because they're stuck together. That's okay. So that's a combination blade. That's a nice blade. It's kind of a compromise between a aggressive rip blade and a high quality crosscut blade. So it'll have a few more teeth than a rip blade would have, but then still have some deep gullets like a rip blade would have. This one is a crosscut blade. It looks to me like a 60 tooth. The label is all gone off it. So that's, I think, about a 60 tooth. The one I have in my saw is an 80. Let's see. This one says 32. Okay, this one says 32, and so that one would be a 32 as well. So, yeah, so nice and sharp. I'm mostly done most of my cutting for this season, but it'll be sharp for next season. one other little project I need to do, I'm going to do that this morning, is I have a second tote. You may have seen that second tote in use last fall when I was transferring that syrup in here. And I'll have to describe it to you. I'll show you in a few minutes. But the outlet of those totes, it has a lever valve, a ball valve kind of a thing. And then it has built right in, it has a fitting just like this. It's a quick connect cam lock kind of a, I'm not sure what the exact name is. And somehow over the winter, I just driving past it where I have it stored, I see that fitting has a big chunk out of it. So there's no way that you can, because that's built right in, there's no way you can put, syrup in that tank and then dispense it, because you can't hook anything to it. So what I need to do is those valves, I don't think those valves are meant to be used again and again and again. They're kind of built in. They're meant for a couple of uses, because it's I don't know, a disposable container, but I just don't think it's a valve that's really meant for long-term use. So I need to take that valve off of that tank, and typically those tanks have a threaded, it would be called a male threaded outlet that has what's called buttress threads. Okay, so this is pipe thread. I believe it's pipe thread, NPT, National Pipe Thread. So you can see I've already put Teflon tape on here, but you can see the pitch. You can see how fine the threads are. Well, the threads on the tank are more like this. You can't really see that, can you? Okay, so you just get an idea. So very coarse, and the sealing surface is here. There's seems like a neoprene washer in here, and it's encapsulated there, so it's not going to fall out. The sealing surface is why you put Teflon on pipe thread, is that's the sealing surface, not this, and not this. It's this, it seals on the thread. So I need to put this adapter fitting on the tank, and then put my valve on that fitting like that, and then put my quick connect on the valve. So it's a bit of a deal here, but it does work, and that's about as best as I can do. So that'll keep that tank from leaking, and it'll give me a positive thing here. A nice thing about this is replaceable. I can turn that valve off. Of course, if the valve fails, it's different, but if something goes on here, I can replace that. So I need to do that in that tank, and I know exactly what to do because I did it to the other tank last fall. What I had to do for the other tank is I had to take the tank out of the cage, which is not a really big deal. There's a couple bars across the top, the screw on. I just laid it on its back, took the bars off, slid the tank up out of the cage. Actually, I don't even know if I take it out. I have to move it up a bit so I get clearance to turn that valve in there. So we'll go do that before we get involved here. But the exciting thing is today I get to start pallets. Yay. See, I've had these risers piled on my workbench for 2 months or whatever it is. So I'll get to use those up, get them out of the way. All the rest of my material is sitting right outside the door. Plywood, risers, runners, shims, the whole 9 yards is sitting out there. So bring some of that in, set up the assembly table again, and build some pallets. And that's going to be building pallets for a month. It's 118 pallets. It's a lot of pallets. So we got to get her done. But I should be done, it was the 12th of April. I should be done by the middle of May. Things get slower and slower as the bees need me more and more. Right now, of course, I don't have very many bees, and they're just kind of almost a holding pattern right now. I've given them some patties, I've given them some syrup, and they're just kind of chugging along, trying to get a foothold with some brood, and then turn around in population by the end of end of April. May 1st is kind of always say that's your report card. You can get them to May 1st, you should be okay. But we're more than 2 weeks away from May 1st yet. So that's what's happening in the apiary. Not a whole lot. Still very muddy outside. I can't move around with my tractor very well without making a mess. And I hate making a mess, but sometimes I have to. Like I have to go to the back, get that tote. So that's a tractor job. So we will see. And I'll go get that tote and I'll show you how I fix that thing. All right, so as I mentioned, this is not hard to do. Just these 2 bars that hold them in. These are quite a large Torx screw. They're a T30 actually. So that's the Torx screw, and that's a T30 bit. Okay, now these are weird. I have to lift it out of here, but it's captured in there. So what I can do is I don't need to pull these out just like this, because the next step is to lay the tank on its back, and then everything should just pull out from there. That valve, that fitting didn't break. Something ate it. Something chewed that away. I'll show you when I get it off. Something was trying to, there was syrup in the tank, and whatever was, the valve was open. So either they were desperate to get at the syrup or they wanted to make a home in here. Maybe both. Okay, so that's easy enough. Yeah, easy enough, he says. It's pinched a little bit in here. But all right. So you can see in here, this is the valve, and whatever was chewing away at that chewed all this away. Boy, I'm glad they didn't get any further, because they would have ruined the fitting on the tank, and you can't replace that. That's part of the molding. This is the only wrench I have is big enough to grab fittings this size. I know, plumbers among you are pulling your hair out. So it's okay, have patience. That was a lot of chewing involved. I'm thinking, I don't know, how do I got to protect these, I guess, from the animals. Now, I can't put it on like this because I won't get it back in the cage. So I think I'm going to have to put it on in the cage. Oh yeah, I'm just remembering the last time I did this. I couldn't really get this out with the cage in place. It's so easy to take it out of the cage. So we'll snug that up real nice. And it's just a flat neoprene sealing washer, so I don't really need to kill myself on it. So even that one has a neoprene washer inside there. I imagine it's neoprene, I don't know. That valve was the problem the whole time. Okay, in there, good. Okay, now this I might have to turn in order to, there was syrup inside the valve, and now there's syrup all over my shoe and my shirt. Yay. Okay. Yeah, that clears just fine. So the reason to take it out of the cage is just so I can get the wrench on there. I suppose an option, I see this is bolted on here. I could have taken these two bolts out. There's a bolt in from the bottom and take this plastic shield out. Might have given me enough space, but I don't think that's any easier than what I did. But it's good to have options. I don't think this needs to be desperately tight, and I don't know what the threshold is for cracking that fitting. That's about a $30 fitting, so we'll just leave it at that. One nice thing about these bars is the screws don't go into here, the screws go into the bar itself. So easy alignment, very much. All right, that job is done. So the urgency on this was driven by, other than the fact that I had a tote I couldn't use because the valve was messed up, is the fact that that syrup over there in that tank, I need to take that syrup back to where I got it last fall, because my bees are dead, most of them anyway. I don't need much syrup, and so the gentleman I got that from said, "You just bring that back. We'll go from there." I took a little bit, so I'll pay him for what I took. But the point is, I need a second tote for that because I can't lift that thing. I can't lift that tote of syrup. I can't lift. You see me with my little tractor. It's awesome. I love the little tractor. But if there's 6 inches of syrup in these tanks, I can't lift them. You saw me last fall trying to get that tote off the trailer, and it was difficult. The little tractor really struggled, but I managed. So what I plan to do is just lift this empty tote onto my trailer, and then I'll pump that tank into it, and then we'll go with that. So that's why we need to do this. And I see my trailer is right in the middle of a lake right now, so I'm gonna have to pull that out of there before I can peel the sides down and put the tote in. All right, we'll set this aside, and then we're gonna get some of this material that's sitting here, and we're gonna build some pallets. I have to trim a cover before I do that, so we'll do that in progression. Okay, now that that little project is done, we'll turn our attention to this. Which I'll begin running at 16 and 13/16. My nice 80 tooth. Go to 16 and 5/8. It took a lot of moving things around, but I think I got set up here now. So I've got my assembly table clamped to the table saw again, and I've set up a bit of a jig here, and I'll show you that in a second. But first I'll point out my rudimentary router table, and that is there to put a chamfer on the runners, and I kind of have to do that first. That's the only part of prepping the material that I don't do beforehand. I could. It's just that it's just one of those things that's easy to do as I assemble. And in fact, I find it helpful if I have to do that kind of thing, because if I'm standing doing one thing for a long period of time, boy, that takes a toll on the body. So moving around is good. And so every 10, I think I'll do 20 runners at a time. So every 10 pallets, then I'll go over there and I'll make 20 more runners. So we'll bring you over here to router table. I'll show you how that goes. I'm working in very close quarters. The material I've got here for the pallets is right behind me, so I'm pushed right up against here. It's not a safety concern at all. So what I need to do here is take my runner and just decide you know, which side is up, which side is down. And what I mean there is, when I cut these, they'll sit on the ground in that orientation when I chamfer them. So that'll be the orientation that they sit on the ground. So I can see this one in particular. It's very nice on this side. Not as nice on this side. Got a bit of a sideways knot there and there too. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this facing up so that the nice side A shows when you look at the product, but more importantly, it has an unbroken surface and it's a much more contiguous surface to sit on the ground, because that's the part that kind of takes the abuse. It sits on the ground all the time and it can rot. So my rule is I want to put the good side down. So good side down. Some of these, actually I think a lot of these have one factory side, which means that the edges are rounded over a little bit. That really doesn't bother me at all, because when I run that through, it'll chamfer it regardless if it's rounded or it's square where I've cut it. So I just run these through just like that. No problem. And for this operation, I want eye protection, of course, because there's nothing like a router for chucking wood chips everywhere. And I also want ear protection because this thing is very loud. So we'll don that. Someday maybe I'll be building this into a proper router table that has a cabinet and whatnot. But boy, I've done a lot of work on this, and I've done some nice trim work on this too. You know, for what it cost me and how hard it was to build, it can't be beat. Now, why am I chamfering these, you may ask? Again, these go, let me show you on a nice one. So these sit this way under the part that sits on the ground, and this will go at the front or the back of the pallet. So this is one of my covers, and you know that I have an interlocking system where the runners sit inside the cover like that. And the reason I round over this edge and chamfer this edge is when you set that down with the forklift or whatever, it just helps it not catch there. So you can be a little bit off and it'll still slide in and lock in right there where it's supposed to sit. They're not that tight either. I'll usually set them back, a quarter of an inch or so. So you got a little bit of wiggle room, because it's hard enough to nail that. But anyway, you get the idea. All right, what I've set up here is just kind of a jig, just a rudimentary guide. And really the only thing this does, it only does one thing for me, is it locates that center riser at a reasonably accurate halfway point from the outside one, right? I don't need a third guide here because that one, it just goes where it goes. I'll line that last one up, which you can't see, to the end of the plywood. So that is what I got in mind. So for the underpinning of the pallets, I use Peel Premium, LePage Peel Premium. Very good glue. You can glue almost anything together with this stuff. So as you know, I always like to pick the best side up, which I think is this side, and the nice smooth cut edge toward me. So that is that. Now I can see that this piece of plywood is plenty long. It's very long. And that's kind of by design. It's just because I don't have to cut it accurately initially, because it gets trimmed at the end anyway. So that's the factory edge, which is kind of nasty. And if there's any real problems, it's going to be on that edge likely. It's so long it's sitting on my parts here. Put a couple screws in to square it up. I think four screws there is enough. Now I don't want the 2x4 sticking out the back, because as I just said, I have to trim that at the end. So this side needs to run along the fence. And if anything, they should be shy, which seems like that's what I'm going to get. What I can do is, this is a good way to make things just kind of tack them together, and it doesn't move. Actually, as I recall now, every year I have to get my groove on with this and kind of learn how to do it again. Last year, I think I was tacking it with that stapler. I'd set this up, tack, put a tack here and a tack there and a tack here. Then I can go and put all my screws in. Now, this isn't, as long as it is, I can put my fingers there and hold, and find out where that 2x4 is, but I can't reach it now. So I'm just going to measure that. That's 16 and 3/4, I think. 16 3/4. So that'll be about where it is. That's a little bit of a pain, but nobody's going to get hurt. And again, I can see where that one is, so I want that one at a similar place. Now, these are going to be 3-way pallets. And that doesn't change anything at this stage. But if there's anything to take into account, it's that there's no center shim sitting on these screws in the center, that kind of thing. There's going to be 2 shims sitting on the sides here. Get this one in there. You can kind of see now how long that plywood is. And I'm going to tack this in place where I want it. Those are number 8 by 2 inch screws. Quite often I will build the underpinnings, set them aside, and then build the tops. I don't know if there's a reason to not put the top on now. I'm kind of thinking about that. So let's try that. So what I need for the top is I need a side shim for each side, 2 rear shims. I think they go like that. And then the all-important center shims. So these center shims are a little different. There's no front shim on my 3-way pallet. This is the front shim. It's very narrow. And so this is kind of the way this is laid out. So this front shim part kind of is taken into account with the rear shim here. Now what I want to do is just do some measuring, make sure that I'm getting this just right, because my box is 11 inches wide. So the way this box sits on here, it's very particular. So what has to sit is these U-clips here. They have to sit right here, but the opposing one has to be, the center of them have to be 11 inches apart, because that center box has to sit on there. Now, part of the difficulty with this is it's less than an exact science, because, you know, you've got a box that's 11 inches wide, but you try to put 2 against each other, they're not going to go so that there's 0 space between them. And my pallet is 33.5 inches wide. So then you think, well, there's 3 boxes at 11 inches each. That's 33 inches. Where's the other half an inch? Well, there's assumed that there's going to be 1/4 inch of play, up to 1/4 inch of play between each box. That's just fine. But I have to start with the measurement between these 2 clips and these 2 shims on the front. I think I'm going to glue and tack this piece on. That's the piece I'll start with. Okay, there goes. Pray for me. And again, I'm trying to remember what I did last year. And I think what I did was I did exactly this. I tacked that in place. And then I used that as a reference. I got these 2 perfectly in place and then went from there. Because this should be 11 center to center. So I'm going to glue this one on. I'm getting confident with what I'm doing now. I like to flush that really nice, because that's not going to get trimmed. That's finished now. Okay. Now, like I say, the important thing is the distance between these 2 here. Yeah, okay, well that's worked out then. That's 11 inches. on the money. Okay, so now since all of these are cut the same length, I did get those right. This center shim is overhanging that just a hair, hardly at all though. And you know, when I put this on, if it's a 16th one way or the other, like if it's over there a little bit, that's not a problem. Not a problem at all. So I'm going to stop worrying about this and we'll just get down to business. Okay, but I want to make sure I get that right. I actually built a bunch of these one time for a guy, and then I realized they were half an inch out or something. It was kind of embarrassing. Okay, so next I'm going to put this piece on, because when I put this piece on, whereas this is defined where this sits, this isn't. It can float. And so what I want to do is put this side shim, I call it, on here, and then I can cut a guide block that I can use at the top to align those. So we will get that on there. You know what? I'm going to do it this way. It always takes me a while to really get my groove on and how I do this. Okay, those are tacks. Actually, this is the staple that I use for that. It's a narrow crown staple. It's 1.25 inches long, which is funny because this stapler says right here that it maxes out at 1 inch staple. I drove 1.25 inches for years with that before I realized that it won't drive 1.25 inches. Oh, funny how that works. All right. As mentioned, I want a guide block for that, which is 9.25. Perfect. Perfect, perfect, perfect. I've got 2 of those that are identical. All right, that's perfect. A bit of glue. This is the part that uses most of the glue. This big center shim. But does a nice job. Now, since that's in there with guide blocks, I can get confident to blow that right in. Yeah, but this isn't going to work because usually I'll use this staple for the 2-way pallet center shim, but that's over a 2x4. This is too long and it's coming through. So I need a shorter staple for that. I don't have 1.25 inches for that big Makita. So I've got 1.25 inches for this nice Senko here. It's a nice stapler. could use these staples exclusively here. They're just a little bigger, a little more money. Okay, have to make sure I get this one right around the right way. The two-way center shim can go either way, but this one it can't. No. Well, I can still feel it, so I need to maybe not put it in that depression there. Okay, so that's done on the top. And for my next trick, and this I don't want a bunch of glue. It's going to run around because I'm going to turn it over, do the bottom. I could do the bottom before I did the top, but I'd have to turn it over twice. And you think, oh, I'll turn it over twice. But that's 118 more times turning this pallet over. And they're not light. It's not like a cover. Get it out of my jig. So this is my guide. And I just made this out of an offcut from a pallet. You can see that it's 33.5 inches long. So it's perfect for what I need. I've written on here, other side up, because it goes here so that I can mark the location of those runners. And it's not symmetrical each side, so I don't want to get it backwards. So the first reason that I want to mark that is so that I can accurately apply some glue. So my runners are about 3 or so, a little more than 3 inches long, 3.5, 3.25. So just put some glue on there. And I want to make sure I remember which side is chamfered. So they go like this. And one other thing I need to do is I want to pre-drill so when I screw these on, they don't split. Now, you know how particular I am sometimes. I have a specific order that I will put these screws in. And that's because, again, the plywood is 33.5 wide. This is 33.5 long. So if there is a discrepancy, which I can see there's a pretty remarkable discrepancy here, there's a lot of overhang. So what I need to do is get my clamps and push this out so that the runner is on there the same as the plywood, because if the runner and the plywood are the same length, then if there's a discrepancy, it means the risers are tipped in or out. So this is what I do about that. I secure this end one nice and flush there. I can put 2 in here. So these lines, I'll push it back just, I don't want it right up to the line, It can be back a little, but that twisted more. So what I have to do now is I have to get a spreader clamp. So you see me using these nice clamps. One of the nice things about these clamps is you can take that head off, move it to the other end, and now it's a spreader clamp, right? Now I can take that between there, and push on that 2x4 and get it nice and straight, stand it up nice and straight there. Now it is, so I can drive 2 screws in that. That glue will squeeze out everywhere. I have to remember not to get that on my clothes or my hands because it's brutal. Brutal stuff. 2 more in the center. As they say, Bob's your uncle. Okay, now that'll stay where it is. And I now have to turn this whole thing around. And this is a little dicey because of all that wet glue I just talked about. Just want to be careful not to get that on me or anything else. Rinse and repeat. Now this one, that 2x4 must be twisted a little bit because this one is a little bit proud there. So do the exactly opposite. I'll get another clamp so I don't have to keep changing them. And I'll pull that in a little. I'm going to pull on the center because my clamp isn't long enough to go on the outside. So I just pull that in a little bit. And then I want to release the clamp before I put the final 2 screws in there, because that invariably will make that center riser tip when I pull on it like that. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is a complete pallet except for 2 things. I'll come later when the glue is set and I'll clean up the glue. So clean up, I can't see it. See, clean up this squeeze out because that'll sit on the lid. So I'll clean out the squeeze out on the front of these runners, and I'll clean up the squeeze out along the sides. There's a little bit right there. So that I'll do, and then I will run it through the table saw to take care of the overhang in the front. Okay, so that's it. That's a completed pallet.